The morning sun rose over New York City as Commander Helena Vasquez sat in the conference room of the United Nations headquarters. She had been awake for nearly 24 hours, waiting for something. Nobody knew what. The emergency alert had gone out to every country, every military base, and every government office in the world. Something was coming. Nobody could tell what it was, but every leader on Earth knew it was important. Helena looked at the screens around the room. Each one showed the faces of world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, generals, and diplomats from nearly every nation. China, America, Russia, India, Brazil, and dozens of others. They all waited in silence. The tension in the air felt like something alive, something that could crush you if you did not breathe carefully. At exactly noon, Greenwich Mean Time, every screen went black. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then a light appeared in the middle of the conference room. It was not a normal light. It did not come from any machine in the room. The light shaped itself into something that looked almost like a person, but it was made entirely of crystal and starlight. It stood about 8 feet tall, and when it moved like water flowing upward. The figure spoke, and its voice came from everywhere at once, in every language, in every country, for every person on Earth. The translation was perfect. Not a single word was misunderstood by the first listeners. This would later prove to be very important. "I am Thuris," the crystal figure said. "I speak for the Galactic Council. We have watched your world for a very long time. We have seen your wars. We have seen your weapons. We have seen your cruelty. We have seen your destruction. Your planet Earth is dying because of what you do to it. Your people are dying because of what you do to each other." Helena's hands became cold. She could feel the fear in the room like a wave. "The Galactic Council rules 40,000 star systems," Thuris continued. "We have brought peace to the stars. We have stopped wars. We have guided young civilizations toward the light of knowledge. But we cannot allow a civilization like yours to remain free. You are too dangerous. You are too chaotic. You are not ready to be part of the greater galaxy." The crystal being paused. When it spoke again, every person listening heard the same words, and those words were meant to be final. "Earth will surrender to the Galactic Council. You will accept our rule, your governments will step down, your weapons will be given to us. Your people will become citizens of the Council, subject to our laws and our wisdom. You have 72 hours to accept this. If you do not accept, we will send a pacification fleet. We will take control by force if we must." Thuris showed images then. Images of ships in space that were so large they made Earth's largest cities look small. Images of weapons that could destroy an entire country with one shot. Images of technology so advanced that Earth scientists would not understand it for 1,000 years. 72 hours, Thuris said again. "Make the choice that is right for your people." The crystal figure disappeared. The light was gone. The screens went back to normal, and suddenly there were 1,000 voices all talking at once. World leaders were shouting. Some were crying. Some were praying. Some were ordering their militaries to do something, anything, but nobody knew what to do against an enemy like this. In America, the president stood up and declared a state of emergency. In Europe, governments called for unity. In Asia, military generals began making plans that they knew were hopeless. Nobody wanted to accept surrender, but nobody believed they could fight either. The news spread to the world in minutes. TV stations showed the same crystal figure over and over. Newspapers printed the message. Social media exploded with fear. Suddenly, every person on Earth knew that their world was about to end or about to change forever. In the streets, people began to panic. Some ran to banks and tried to take out all their money. Some ran to stores and bought everything they could carry. Some went to churches and temples and prayed. Some sat at home with their families and held them close. The stock markets of the world crashed. Trillions of dollars disappeared in a matter of hours. Governments started to fall apart. In some countries, soldiers took control. In others, people simply stopped listening to their leaders. Everyone was thinking about the same thing: we are going to lose everything. In New York, Helena Vasquez sat in her office and looked at the earth from the window. She could see the Hudson River. She could see the buildings and the streets and the millions of people down there. All of them were scared now. All of them knew that in 72 hours, everything would change. She thought about what Thuris had said. The Galactic Council had watched them. They had seen Earth's wars. They had seen the cruelty. They had judged humanity and found it wanting. And now they were going to take Earth away and make it part of their empire. Military leaders met in the Pentagon. They calculated how long Earth's weapons could fight against the Council's technology. The answer was not encouraging. Some experts said maybe a few hours. Others said a few days at most. Everyone agreed on one thing: Earth could not win a war against the Galactic Council. Governments tried to negotiate. They sent messages to Thuris, asking for more time, asking for peace talks, asking for anything. But Thuris did not answer. The Council had made their decision. They were waiting to see if humanity would be smart enough to surrender without fighting. As the first night fell after the Council's message, something strange began to happen. The fear did not disappear, but it began to change. In coffee shops and bars and homes, people started to talk, not about dying, but about the Council, not about surrender, but about what would happen next. Some people were angry, some were sad, but some people, in that strange way that humans have, started to see the situation differently. One man in London made a joke online about the Council. One woman in Tokyo made a meme. One group of students in Brazil started laughing about the absurdity of it all. By the second day, something was becoming clear. The Council had made a mistake. They had thought that giving humans an ultimatum would make them surrender in fear. But humans had a quality that the ancient Council had perhaps forgotten about. Humans could find hope in the darkest places. Humans could laugh when they should cry. Humans could find a reason to celebrate even when the end seemed near. The Council was patient. They waited to see what humanity would do, but they had no idea what was coming. They did not understand the translation error that would change everything. They did not know that in just a few more hours, the greatest misunderstanding in the history of the galaxy would begin. And it would lead to the strangest peace that the universe had ever seen. The error happened because of a simple problem. The Galactic Council had translated their message into human languages perfectly, but they had not accounted for one thing: the machines that people used to understand the message. The computers, the phones, the automatic translation systems, all of these things had filters and algorithms that tried to make sense of alien words. When the word menaced passed through a popular translation app, the machine tried to find the closest human word it could understand. Menaced was too formal, too unusual. The computer chose mandated instead. It was close enough, almost the same thing. Who would notice? The word war caused a bigger problem. After the automatic system changed menaced to mandated, the rest of the sentence did not make sense. The Galactic Council mandated Earth with war was not proper grammar, so the computer tried to fix it. It changed war to wages. The Galactic Council mandated Earth wages. That sounded more like something a government organization might do. Within 2 hours, the message had spread across the internet with the wrong words. News channels picked up the computer translation first. By the time human translators started checking the message, millions of people had already read the wrong version, and millions of people had already started talking about it. In a coffee shop in New York, a young woman named Sarah read the headline on her phone: Galactic Council mandates Earth wages program. She looked at her friend. They both smiled. "They're going to pay us," Sarah said. "The aliens are going to give us money." In Tokyo, a university student posted the news on social media with a joke: "Free money from space. I'll take it." The post got 10,000 likes in 1 hour. In Sao Paulo, a group of friends were sitting in a bar when the news came on the television. The bartender read the headline out loud: Galactic Council mandates Earth economic stimulus package. He laughed. Well, I guess the end of the world is not so bad after all. At least we get paid. The misunderstanding spread like fire through dry grass. People stopped being afraid and started being confused, then hopeful, then happy. The news networks began reporting on what the people were saying. Within hours, the narrative had completely changed. Headlines appeared in every language. Galactic Council announces economic aid for Earth. Space aliens to fund human development. Humanity receives trillion-dollar grant from advanced civilization. In government offices, world leaders started receiving messages from their advisors. The messages said the same thing. The people do not believe we are going to war. They think we are getting free money. What do we do? Some leaders tried to correct the misunderstanding. President of the United States made a speech. The council's message was translated incorrectly, he said. They are not giving us money, they are threatening us with. But before he could finish, his words were drowned out by cheering. The people did not want to hear the truth. They had already made up their minds. They had hope now, and hope was too powerful to destroy with facts. A military general in Russia threw his hands up in frustration. How do I order soldiers to prepare for war when the entire country thinks we just won the lottery? He asked his advisors. Nobody had an answer. In London, the Prime Minister called an emergency meeting with her top scientists. Is there a translation error? She asked them. The scientists checked the original message. They confirmed it. The word was menaced, not mandated. The word was war, not wages. We need to tell people, the Prime Minister said. How? Asked her advisor. How do we convince them that they are wrong? They are happy now. They are celebrating. How do we take away that happiness and give them fear instead? The Prime Minister did not have an answer either. By the second day after the council's message, Earth had transformed into a party. In New York, people gathered in Times Square with signs that said, "Thank you, space friends," and "Welcome to Earth, rich aliens." Music played in the streets. People danced. In Rio de Janeiro, a carnival began without anyone officially planning one. Musicians brought out instruments. People sang and danced. Street vendors sold food and drinks. Someone said, "Let's celebrate humanity getting chosen to join the galaxy," and thousands of people agreed. On the internet, memes appeared showing humans celebrating and aliens looking confused. People made jokes about space aliens discovering Earth's internet culture. Someone created a Twitter account pretending to be the Galactic Council, making funny tweets about human civilization. It got 1 million followers in a day. University students began talking about space exchange programs. If the Galactic Council was going to be Earth's friend, maybe they could study on alien worlds. Maybe they could learn alien science. Maybe they could become astronauts and explore the galaxy. Economists started calculating how much money humanity might receive. News channels ran segments on what Earth could do with the space money. Some people talked about solving poverty. Some talked about fixing climate change. Some talked about building new cities on the moon. Governments, realizing they could not stop the celebration, decided to join it instead. The United Nations announced that it was planning a Welcome to the Galaxy conference. Diplomats started writing speeches about humanity joining a universal community. Military generals, unable to fight the celebration, quietly canceled their war preparations. In a small town in India, a farmer watched the news and smiled. He did not have much money. He had always struggled. But now he thought maybe things would be better. Maybe with help from advanced aliens, his children could have better lives. In South Africa, a young girl asked her mother, "Are the aliens really our friends?" Her mother, who had also heard the wrong translation, said, "It seems like they are. They are giving us money. That is what friends do." The Galactic Council, watching from their ships in space, was completely confused. Their instruments showed that humans were celebrating. They saw parties and dancing. They saw smiles and joy. They heard songs being sung about gratitude. Thuris studied the Earth transmissions with great confusion. This was not the response any advanced civilization had ever given to an ultimatum. This was not surrender. This was not resistance. This was something the Council's computers did not even have a word for. "Why are they celebrating?" asked another Council member, a being of pure energy named Zix. "We threatened them with destruction. They should be preparing to fight or preparing to surrender, but they are celebrating." Nobody knew the answer. The Council did not understand that humans had misunderstood the message. They did not know that the machines had changed the words. They thought that humans had simply chosen to celebrate their own conquest. And in that moment of confusion, humanity's fate began to change. Because the Galactic Council had never encountered a civilization that would celebrate its own ending with such joy, such hope, and such absurd, beautiful optimism. The clock was ticking down to the moment when everything would change. But neither the humans nor the Council knew exactly how it would happen. All they knew was that something unprecedented was about to occur. The Council's pacification fleet arrived in Earth orbit 36 hours before the deadline. They came with weapons powered by stars, with shields that could stop nuclear explosions, with technology that humanity could not even imagine. Scientists on Earth watched the ships appear on their instruments and fell silent. The ships were real. The threat was real. But something strange was happening. While military leaders watched the Council's fleet, the people of Earth were still celebrating. The parties had only grown bigger. The United Nations had announced a global holiday. Some countries had shut down their businesses so everyone could prepare for the welcoming ceremony for the Galactic Council. In the Situation Room at UN headquarters, Commander Vasquez stood looking at the maps showing the Council's ships. Her advisors were pale and quiet. They knew the truth. They knew that the message had been mistranslated. They had tried to tell people, but nobody had listened. A young translator named Michael ran into the room holding papers. "Commander," he said, breathing hard, "I have triple-checked the original message. The Council said menaced, not mandated. They said war, not wages. We need to tell everyone immediately." "How?" asked Vasquez. "Look outside. Look at the news. There are parties in every city. There are celebrations in the streets. If we tell them the truth now, we will cause mass panic. We will destroy the hope they have found." Michael sat down slowly. He knew she was right. The people of Earth had been given a terrible choice, guaranteed death or certain enslavement. And then, by accident, they had been given hope instead. It was not real hope, but it was enough to make them smile. How could you take that away? In Earth orbit, the Council ships took position around the planet. They sent a message. "The 72 hours have passed. We are waiting for Earth's response. Will you surrender or must we use force?" The message was translated correctly this time. There was no mistake in the words, but Thuris was surprised by what happened next. A small shuttle launched from Earth. It was not a military ship. It did not carry weapons. It was a civilian transport, old and slow compared to the Council's technology, but it came toward the flagship without fear. Inside the shuttle were 10 humans. They were diplomats, scientists, and leaders. They came unarmed and alone. When the shuttle docked with the Council's ship, Thuris and the other Council members watched through their sensors. The shuttle door opened and the humans walked out. The first person to leave the shuttle was Commander Vasquez. She was wearing formal diplomatic clothing. Behind her came Dr. James Chen, a Chinese scientist. Behind him came Maria Santos, a social worker from Brazil. Behind her came 9 others, educators, artists, and philosophers. They walked slowly into the Council's meeting chamber. They did not look afraid. They looked peaceful. They looked like they had come to make a friend, not to surrender. Thuris was very confused. "I am Commander Helena Vasquez," said the human leader. "We come from Earth to speak with you." We wish to understand why you believe you have the right to rule our world." The question hung in the air like a weapon. It was not a surrender. It was not a fight. It was something else entirely. It was a challenge to the council's authority, spoken calmly and without anger. The council fell silent. Thuris had never been asked that question before. The council had ruled for millions of years. Nobody had ever asked them why they had the right to do so. "We have superior technology," said Zix, the energy being. "We have superior knowledge. We have achieved peace across 40,000 star systems. Clearly, we have the right." "But do you have wisdom?" asked Dr. James Chen. "Technology and knowledge are tools. They do not make you wise. Wisdom is understanding when to use power and when not to use it. Wisdom is knowing that some things cannot be conquered." Thuris felt something strange happen inside its crystal structure. It was not pain, but it was not comfort either. It was confusion. For the first time in millions of years, the council was being questioned about its basic assumptions. "What do you want?" asked Thuris. "We want to know you," said Maria Santos. "We want to understand why you are afraid of us." "We are not afraid," said Zix. "We are the Galactic Council. We do not know fear." "But you are," said Maria. "You are very afraid. That is why you want to conquer us. You are afraid of something that you do not understand. You are afraid of a young civilization that has survived despite all odds. You are afraid of humans because we are alive in a way that your ancient peoples have forgotten." Thuris studied the humans more carefully. These were not soldiers. They were not coming to negotiate from a position of strength. They were coming to speak as equals. They were coming with a kind of confidence that had nothing to do with weapons or technology. "We have brought something for you," said Vasquez. She gestured to her team and they pulled out USB drives. On them were humanity's greatest works: music, art, literature, science, philosophy, all the things that humans had created over their history, even while they were at war with each other. The council analyzed the data. They heard human music. They read human poetry. They saw human paintings and sculptures. They studied human scientific discoveries made with primitive technology, and something began to change in their thinking. One of the oldest council members, a being named Kale who had lived for 50 million years, spoke slowly. "I remember," said Kale. "I remember when our people were young. We were chaotic like this. We made mistakes. We fought with each other, but we also created beauty. We also wrote poetry. We also dreamed of the stars. When did we forget that creation comes from chaos?" "When you conquered the stars," said Dr. Chen. "When you started ruling rather than learning. When you began to believe that order is more important than growth." The council called an emergency meeting. They argued about what to do with the humans who stood before them. Some wanted to imprison them. Some wanted to study them further. But the oldest members, remembering their own youth, began to see something in the humans that they had not expected. The humans were not asking to be spared. They were asking to be understood. They were offering friendship instead of submission. They were speaking from the heart instead of from fear. "What would you propose?" Thuris asked finally. "If we do not conquer your world, what is your alternative?" "Let us join you," said Vasquez. "Not as slaves or colonies, but as partners. Let us learn from your wisdom. Let us teach you what we have learned from being young and struggling to survive. Let the Galactic Council become truly galactic, not just a council of old civilizations ruling over young ones, but a family of different peoples learning from each other." The council had never heard such a proposal before. Partnership, equality. The idea was revolutionary. It challenged everything they believed about how civilization should work. But as Thuris looked at the humans standing before them, something shifted. These people had faced extinction with hope. They had chosen to come to the council without weapons, without defense, trusting that reason and honesty would be enough. Maybe, Thuris thought, the humans had something the council truly needed. Maybe the oldest civilizations in the galaxy had forgotten something important about living. The council chamber was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was not one room, but many rooms existing in the same space. Different parts of the space belonged to different species. One section floated in a special atmosphere for the gas creatures. Another was filled with liquid for the aquatic members. Another held perfect vacuum for the beings made of energy. The architecture seemed impossible, but it all fit together like a perfect machine. The 17 different species of the Galactic Council looked at the 10 humans who stood in the center. Some of the beings were curious. Some were hostile. One member, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of crystal, seemed completely uninterested. But they were all listening. "You claim you can offer something to the Council," said Thuris. "The Council has existed for millions of years. We have learned the secrets of the stars. We have built technology that moves worlds. We have brought peace to 40,000 star systems. What could a young species possibly offer us?" Dr. James Chen stepped forward. He was not afraid, even though he was smaller than most of the alien beings. "Knowledge," he said. "You have learned how to build and create, but I suspect you have forgotten how to discover. In our world, discovery happens fastest when we are desperate. When we are young and struggling, we find new ways to think. When we are fighting for survival, we create new ideas. We make breakthroughs." A being made entirely of light made a sound like laughter. "Desperation does not create knowledge. Fear does not make wisdom. You are trying to convince us that weakness is strength." "No," said Maria Santos, the social worker. "We are trying to convince you that struggle produces growth. I have worked with people my whole life. I have seen people who had everything given to them stay the same forever. And I have seen people who had to fight for everything become strong and wise. What we offer is not weakness. What we offer is the ability to grow." The oldest member of the council, Kale, who had lived for 50 million years, began to speak. "I remember," said Kale slowly. "Long ago, before the council ruled the galaxy, we were like them. We made mistakes. We fought wars. Our world was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Then we learned how to control everything. We learned how to make the galaxy peaceful, but peace that lasts too long becomes stagnation." "Exactly," said Vasquez. "You have order and peace, but you may have lost something important. You may have lost the ability to change. Humanity is young. We are chaotic. We make mistakes. But we also have something you need. We have the ability to see problems in new ways. We have the ability to imagine things that have never existed before." The aquatic members of the council bubbled with sounds that might have been agreement or disagreement. The tree-like crystal creature remained silent, but the energy being spoke again. "What you are describing is not partnership. It is using us as consultants, using us to fix your problems. That is still a kind of master-servant relationship, just with the roles switched." "No," said Dr. Chen. "True partnership means we both change. You offer us your science and your knowledge. We offer you our creativity and our ability to see new possibilities. We learn from each other. We grow together." Maria stood forward and spoke from her heart. "I have worked with people from many different backgrounds, and I have learned that when you truly respect another person, when you truly listen to them, something amazing happens. You become more than yourself. You see the world differently. I think the Galactic Council has forgotten what it is like to be truly surprised by another person or another culture." Thuris felt something shifting in the chamber. The other council members were listening. They were thinking about what the humans were saying. Some were angry, some were thoughtful, but all of them were considering the possibility that the humans might be right. For 3 days, the negotiation continued. The humans told the council about Earth's history. They told stories of ancient civilizations that had created beauty and wisdom, even while struggling against nature and each other. They showed the council art that had been created during times of war and poverty and pain. They played music that made even the ancient beings feel, something they had not felt in millions of years. The council members argued among themselves. The younger members of the council wanted to accept the humans as partners. The older members were more cautious. One faction believed the humans should still be conquered, just more gently. Another faction thought the humans should be left alone to develop on their own. But Kale, the oldest member, was convinced by something Maria had said. "When we stopped struggling, we stopped growing," she had told him. "When you conquered the galaxy, you got peace, but you lost something. You lost the chance to be surprised. You lost the chance to meet someone completely different from yourself and have to figure out how to understand them. Maybe you need us as much as we need you." Kale called for a final vote. The council chamber fell silent. One by one, the 17 members of the Galactic Council cast their votes. Thuris voted yes. Zix, the energy being, voted no. The tree creature abstained. The aquatic members voted yes. The crystal beings voted yes. The final count was 12 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 3 abstentions. The humans had not won unanimously, but they had won enough. "The Galactic Council has decided," announced Kale. "Earth will not be conquered. Earth will not be left alone. Instead, Earth will be offered membership in the Galactic Council, with probationary status lasting 100 of your Earth years. During this time, we will learn from you, and you will learn from us. After 100 years, we will vote again to make your membership permanent." Vasquez felt tears come to her eyes. She had not expected this. She had hoped, but she had not truly believed it was possible. "But there is one condition," said Thuris. "You must tell your people the truth. You must tell them about the mistranslation. You must tell them about the ultimatum. You must tell them that your survival depends not on luck, but on your ability to convince us that you are worth saving." "They will know," said Dr. Chen. "They will understand that what they created with their hope and their celebration is the reason we succeeded. They will learn that optimism and openness of heart can be more powerful than any weapon." The humans returned to Earth as something new had been born. Not just peace between species, but the beginning of a real partnership between the young and the old, between the chaotic and the ordered, between those still learning to live and those who had almost forgotten how. The Galactic Council, for the first time in millions of years, found themselves excited about the future. They had conquered much, but they had never truly made a friend with equals. That was about to change. And in that change, both humanity and the Council would discover that growth and change never truly end, as long as two different peoples are willing to truly listen to each other. 1 year had passed since the Galactic Council arrived at Earth. The world had changed in ways that nobody could have imagined. Cities were being built that combined human architecture with alien design. Schools were being established where human children learned about the galaxy, and young beings from other worlds came to Earth to learn about humanity. Commander Vasquez stood on a hill overlooking New York City. She looked at the new buildings that had been constructed with the help of alien technology. She looked at the sky, where ships from different worlds were arriving regularly. Some came bringing gifts. Some came bringing scientific data. Some came bringing musicians and artists who wanted to share their cultures with humanity. The celebration that had started with a mistranslation had never really ended, but now it was different. Now it was real. Now it was not based on a false hope, but on actual hope. Humanity was part of something larger than itself, and the larger galaxy was being changed by this contact. In Rio de Janeiro, the annual carnival had become something new. It was no longer just a Brazilian celebration, but a festival where beings from across the galaxy came to experience human culture. Musicians from a dozen different worlds played human music and taught humans their own musical traditions. Dancers from Earth danced with creatures made of light and crystal and pure energy. The celebration had become something beautiful and impossible. In universities across Earth, human scientists were working with alien scholars. They were making discoveries that would have taken humanity 1,000 years to make alone. The same was happening in reverse. Alien scientists were learning from human approaches to problems, human ways of thinking outside established patterns. Maria Santos, the social worker, had become an official liaison between Earth and the Council. She traveled regularly to Council worlds, always bringing with her the message that understanding comes from listening to each other's hearts, not just analyzing each other's data. She had started a program where young humans went to live with alien families, and young aliens came to live with humans. The program was called Learning to Be One Family, and it was changing how both species thought about each other. The news about the mistranslation had eventually been shared with all of Earth. At first, some people were angry. They had been celebrating a lie. They had thought they were getting rich, but instead they had narrowly avoided conquest. Some governments tried to keep the truth secret, but the truth could not stay hidden. But something unexpected happened. Instead of despair returning, the people of Earth became even more proud. They realized that they had succeeded not because of luck, but because of their own nature. They had celebrated because they were optimistic. They had sent diplomats instead of soldiers because they were wise. They had offered friendship because they were brave enough to believe in possibilities. The celebration became an annual holiday called the Day of Misunderstanding. On this day, humans gathered to remember that they had almost been conquered, and that they had survived because they had chosen hope over fear. Parades were held in every city. Stories were told about how humanity had faced the darkness and found light instead. Young people began studying the event in school. They learned about how the Council had expected surrender or resistance, but instead got celebration. They learned that, when the Galactic Council tried to judge humans as inferior, humans had proven that they were different, not worse, but different in valuable ways. On the 10th anniversary of the Council's arrival, a great gathering was held at the United Nations headquarters. Representatives from all 17 species of the Galactic Council came to Earth. They walked through the streets of New York, and humans lined the roads to welcome them. It was a peaceful moment, filled with genuine warmth and recognition. Thuris, the crystal being who had been the Council's emissary, spoke at the gathering. "When I first came to this world," said Thuris, "I saw only chaos and danger. I saw a species that had caused itself great suffering. I was ready to impose order and control, but the humans taught me something I had forgotten in my millions of years of life. They taught me that growth and change are never finished. They taught me that a civilization is not judged by how much it controls, but by how much it learns." Dr. James Chen, who had asked the Council the question about their right to rule, had continued his work as a scientist. He was now leading a joint research project between Earth and the Council on the nature of consciousness. His discoveries were changing how all intelligent beings understood thinking and awareness. The Galactic Council itself had begun to change. The younger members were becoming bolder in their decisions. The older members were starting to question some of the rules and systems they had held for millions of years. They had created a new position in the Council, the Earth representative, and humans would rotate into this role every few years. This meant that humans would have a voice in decisions that affected 40,000 star systems. Some of the other young civilizations that had been considering joining the Council were now actually applying. They saw that being part of the Council did not mean losing yourself or your culture. It meant gaining partners who would help you grow. They wanted what Earth had found. In the small town in India where the farmer had watched the news years ago, that same farmer now sat with his grandchildren. His life had not become rich overnight like some had imagined, but it had become better. His children had opportunities for education that they never would have had. His grandchildren were learning both human and alien science. His small farm was now part of a global network that used technology from across the galaxy to grow food more efficiently. The question that Dr. Chen had asked the Council, "Why does the Council believe it has the right to rule us?" had started a revolution in thinking. Slowly, other civilizations under Council rule were beginning to ask the same question. The Council could not answer it, because the truth was they did not have the right. They had only had the power. And now, with humanity's example, Power was being given back where it belonged, with the people who lived their own lives. 20 years after the mistranslation, Commander Vasquez stood on the same hill where she had stood before. She was older now, and her hair was gray. She had retired from her position, but she still advised on matters between Earth and the Council. She looked at the sky and saw ships from 100 worlds moving between the stars. She thought about the journey that had started with fear and ended with friendship. She thought about how a simple mistake in translation had changed the galaxy forever. A young person joined her on the hill. She was a human-alien hybrid, born to a human mother and an alien father. She was part of the first generation that belonged equally to two worlds. "What are you thinking about?" asked the young woman. "I am thinking about how fragile our survival was," said Vasquez. "How one wrong word could have changed everything. But I am also thinking about how resilient we are, how we found hope in the darkest moment, how we chose to celebrate instead of surrender." "The day of misunderstanding," said the young woman. "My grandfather told me that every human family has a story about where they were when the council arrived, and every story ends with them celebrating, even though they did not understand why." "Yes," said Vasquez, "that is who we are. That is what makes us human. We celebrate even when we do not know if we should. We hope even when there is no reason to hope. We reach out to strangers and treat them like friends." Below them, the city of New York spread out. It was still a human city, but it was also part of something much larger now. There were alien buildings next to human buildings. There were humans walking beside creatures from distant worlds. It was messy and complicated and beautiful. The sun was setting, and the lights of the city began to turn on. Somewhere in the city, music was playing. Somewhere, humans and aliens were having dinner together and learning about each other's lives. Somewhere, scientists were making discoveries. Somewhere, artists were creating beauty that belonged to no single species. The Galactic Council, in all their ancient wisdom, had learned something from a young species that had celebrated its own destruction. They had learned that true civilization is not built on control and power, but on curiosity and openness and the willingness to be wrong. And humanity, facing extinction, had learned that hope is never foolish. Hope is the most powerful force in the universe. Hope is what lets you smile in the darkness. Hope is what lets you celebrate when you should be afraid. And hope, in the end, is what saves you. The day of misunderstanding was now celebrated across the entire galaxy. In cities on 1,000 worlds, people of all species gathered to remember that day when a young civilization had misunderstood an ultimatum and accidentally changed everything. They gathered to celebrate that the universe was large enough for everyone, if only everyone was willing to listen. And it had all started with a simple mistake, a single word changed by a machine. A translation error that led to hope instead of fear. A moment when humanity, given the choice between surrender and celebration, had chosen to celebrate, and in that choice had saved not just themselves, but had shown the entire galaxy what was possible when different beings trusted each other. The stars shone above the earth as they had for billions of years, but tonight they shone on a world that was no longer alone. Tonight, they shone on a world that had become part of something greater, and it had all happened because humans had chosen to hope, even when hope seemed foolish. Even when hope seemed impossible, humanity had celebrated anyway.